to shed light on her findings with regards to the autopsy conducted with Jun Villamor in Middleman.
Good morning. Well, my involvement here started on social media, where people usually ask me what I think of some controversial death. But formally, I was asked by Secretary Remulla, I think on Monday, we had a phone call, and I told him, yes, it can be done, what it takes. And first and foremost, I asked for an authorization because the Mabasa family themselves cannot actually, that's not what I need if I'm going to ask for a consent. And that was arranged. And Secretary Remulla had been very transparent about my needs and my questions. And in fact, if not for the information I got from DOJ's investigation, then I would not have gone this far because I was prepared to just say this much, okay, and I'll explain to you what has transpired. Right? So basically, the body was brought to us finally on October 25 in the afternoon. But then at that time, I did not have that authorization letter yet. I did not want to open up the body without it. NBI went. So the body was brought to us by the Bureau of Corrections officials and turned over properly and so on. We signed for it. And then shortly after, NBI sent apparently a team to observe. But I said, no, I'm not going to examine the body yet. And I was also hesitant because they came with a full team of 2 doctors and about 3 others, including a videographer. You know, we do not do autopsies like that. And I know that they had already seen the body themselves, so what's the point? We document our findings, right? So anyway, I coordinated with Dr. Maria Cecilia Lim, also a forensic pathologist, and the vice chair of the Department of Pathology. It's at PGH, it's the UP College of Medicine. So also in the same department, and I requested that she be the one to be there. NBI also consults her. So we scheduled the actual autopsy the following day in the morning. So this would be October 26th. And it took us that whole morning. We finished by 11:30. And the body was well preserved, post-autopsy, post-embalmed. The embalming was good. We were expecting that formalin fumes would be overwhelming. We encountered that a lot. But this time around, the body was right for examination. Okay? And so we documented everything, the embalming sites, the autopsy, incisions, and all the details are in the report. Okay, that's why it's 6 pages long. It's very much detailed. I'll just focus on the front sheet where it has the pathologic diagnosis and what we call the opinion. Alright? And so to summarize, the most pertinent findings would be, number 1, history of asphyxia by plastic bag suffocation. 2, pulmonary congestion, edema, and hemorrhages. 3, schistosomiasis of the liver. It's an incidental finding, it's a parasitic infection. I believe it comes from Leyte, Samar area, and that's kind of endemic in that area. Number 4, status post-autopsy. Number 5, status post-embalming. Number 6, evidence of medical intervention consisting of a needle puncture mark on the dorsal right hand. Well, I saw this on, zooming in on the pictures, and I'm not too sure at this point if the Bucor Hospital did this, because sometimes when you bring bodies to the hospital, they automatically try and look for a vein there. I don't have records of what they did, what they saw in that hospital, but this is not really that significant. Alright, and then I have here an opinion, and it reads, this is the case of a 42-year-old male who was an inmate incarcerated at the New Bilibid prison when he was allegedly found unresponsive and pronounced dead at the NBP Hospital on October 18, 2022. The cause of death was certified as, in quotation marks, dead on arrival, undetermined, for autopsy. The embalmed remains were autopsied on October 20, 2022 by the National Bureau of Investigation. A second autopsy was conducted on October 26, 2022. There is information that he expressed fear for his life shortly before his demise, and that he died from suffocation by means of a plastic bag over his head. The autopsy findings showed no gross morphologic cause of death, and this is consistent with the reported asphyxia. Limitations were encountered in the examination due to the postmortem interval, the previous embalming, and autopsy. Preliminary urine toxicology showed methamphetamine. Based on available information regarding the circumstances surrounding death, the manner is homicide. Okay, so when I was constantly discussing the case with Secretary Rebulla, and at first I said I did not find anything, meaning he was not sick of something serious, no significant injuries also. So external and internal findings were negative, and at first I was about to say that. That's it. There's no cause of death, and the manner would be classified as what we call undetermined. However, information trickled in. I noted it here, and this is very important, that he had an inkling that he was in danger, and true enough, shortly after, he died. And this sense, this feeling of impending death actually was transmitted to someone, and this information is credible. So I had to consider that. So I was about to write as manner of death, probable homicide. However, again, additional information was that there's an account of someone now explaining how he died. And I remember Secretary Rebulla asking me, plastic bag. And I said, puede. Actually, puede. So when you look at a case like this, it's totality of evidence. When I refer to manner, it is how the person died. Cause would be why. Okay? And to say how, you have to look at everything, including the circumstances. And I really had to factor in the two things, that he knew he was about to die, and he did. And two, that someone actually offered an explanation of, cause. And taking everything into consideration, it is consistent. No morphologic findings. And yes, putting a plastic bag over one's head can be very effective.
We're opening the floor to questions, and I will explain something later again after the questions are done.
Hello. Good morning, Secretary. Isa Umali po from TCWB. Dahil po ba sa findings ni Dr. Fortune, di ba dati po nabanggit nyo may possibility of murder yung nangyari kay Jun Villamor. Ganun na rin po ba yung nakita nyo ngayon? Possible murder case na po ba ito?
We are now holding in custody in custody na ngayon ang 7 tao na marahil may kasama sa may alam sa nangyari sa kanya, at ito po ay ating hinahawakan na ngayon. Hindi pa sila tinatanong, ngunit aalamin natin 7 tao po ito na ating tatanungin po sa bagay na ito. Dahil nga sa mga investigasyon na nagaganap ng mga huling araw, Marami na po tayo nakakausap, marami na po nagpapaliwanag. At may dito pa kung tao tayong kinuha na maaring ito na ang magpapaliwanag at magtuturo na ang pagkamatay ni Jun Villamor ay isang hindi po aksidente, hindi po atake na natural, ngunit isa pong pinagtaluhang kamatayan. Kaya ito po ay malinaw na malinaw po ngayon. Kaya kakausapin po namin yung 7 tao.
Secretary, good morning. Si Johnson po from ABS-CBN. Secretary and kay Dr. Fortun, kung ganun po na magkaiba yung result dun sa autopsy ng NBI at sa findings po ni Dr. Fortun, will this not create reasonable doubt dun sa criminal case against the perpetrators?
I'm not really sure na magkaiba. I have not actually seen the report of NBI. As I kept saying earlier, what they submitted was very sketchy, and it was more of an internal office memo. It's not a technical autopsy report. I'm not sure kung magkaiba. Let me just comment that it, for them to have seen the body earlier, of course, nagkaroon ng changes. But at the same time, I appreciate the fact that may nakita pa ako. And that's why sa akin kasi it's really show me the body. And like for instance, yung ihi na nakuha. The bladder was intact, surprisingly. And it contained a lot of urine. Probably, sa amin, mga 40 ml. Dami nun hindi ko alam kung ano yung nakuha ng NBI because I was told that, kasi ang tanong ko, hindi niyo ba nakita to? Kasama yan sa complete autopsy. Ang sabi sa akin, they aspirated daw. But really, what we do is we take out the bladder, everything there, the prostate, the testes. That is how you do a complete autopsy. There's another potential source of toxicology samples. The stomach. Again, to my disadvantage, it's not there anymore. And apparently, they took out the entire stomach. So, let's wait. I don't know when they're going to release their findings. They're still doing histopathology as well and toxicology.
Anyway, the presence of methamphetamine is another factor that probably we should note. Rumors na meron talaga shabu sa loob ng bilibid, I think, is confirmed by the fact that the person who died had shabu or methamphetamine in his system. I think it's a very important finding that was not present in the first report. And this, actually, we are still planning to have a second laboratory examine the urine that is there. Kasi marami naman siya. I think that the exam for drugs or for reactions sa urine did not exhaust all the possible material that we can have examined by a second laboratory in case Dr. Fortun wants to search for more clues in the urine. And we're willing to do that, and we will just look for the laboratory that can process it.
Secretary, follow-up lang po. Yung binanggit po ninyo na in custody yung 7 na maaaring makatulong dun sa investigation, sino ba yung magtuturo doon sa mastermind or isa sa kanila yung posibleng mastermind?
We have the Percy Lapid case and the Jun Villamor case. Naging intersect yung dalawa because Jun Villamor was an alleged co-conspirator in the death of Percy Lapid. But because Jun Villamor died also, then it's another case in itself. I think that we should not forget that we're not talking about a single person dying, but 2 persons dying. And yung mahalaga lang sa 7 na in custody ngayon is that they can validate that Jun Villamor was actually killed. There's nothing inconsistent with the findings of Dr. Fortun or the NBI on this matter. I believe, no inconsistency, because not being apparent doesn't mean it didn't happen. I think we should be clear about that. Kaya, we're now in the last phase, I believe, of the investigation. We will evaluate again all the statements. I want the NBI to speak to the gunman again. To the gunman, because they have not examined the gunman, the alleged gunman or the confessed gunman, and the other person in custody in the PNP Custodial Center. And we intend to do this in the next few days so that we can complete the story that we have to stitch together to know what really happened. We can operate on the basis of the statement made by the confessed gunman, but I think that there are other questions that we have to ask about this matter. Of course, we're awaiting the report of the Anti-Money Laundering Council on the bank account. There are other factors we're trying to get in to the phone so that we can examine them. But this case is almost over. I mean, the investigation is almost over. It's a matter of filing the cases and probably being able to identify masterminds in this case. We are saying masterminds because in the plural because we are drawing out two persons of interest as masterminds, but we cannot say their names now because we have to determine everything and we don't want to violate any rights of anybody. We're just here to make sure that we conduct everything in accordance with law.
Any more questions?
Sir, si Boy Gonzales po sa Alex. Yung nasa custody ng baggers, sir, may officer ba ng Bureau doon o PDL? At isa pa, nagkaroon po ba ng takipan ng NBI sa ginawang autopsy at yung autopsy
Wala akong nakikita takipan. Marami lang yung bagay na dapat natin malaman kasi nga, ang science kasi ng pathology, kakaiba po yan sa ordinary medical legal examination. That's why I really thought about it before I contacted Dr. Fortune to have a second examination as requested by the family of Percy Lapid. Because there are things that are qualifications that are attached to every job. And sometimes the experience is necessary for us to determine the trajectory of any investigation. There are advantages also to the fact that Dr. Fortune was already guided by myself in discussing the case because we're already conducting a pathological exam based on knowledge of what had transpired already. When then they came earlier, they came in much earlier, they came in blind, not knowing anything yet. But I don't think there's any consistency with her findings, except that she just found a little more. And that is, of course, the methamphetamine to the system and other things that probably, if compared, mayroong pagkakaiba. So this helps us explain a lot of things and also reveals something about the way that the believed runs when the person there had drugs in the system, had methamphetamine in the system. I think that's very revealing. That's why the investigation is to push forward and further, and it will not stop here. Yung pito pang kakausapin namin, andyan na sila para makausap ng ating mga kasama. Dalawa na lang kailangan namin makausap muli, yung dalawang nasa PNP Custodial Center na persons of interest who are part of the narrative that we have been putting together based on the testimonies of the different persons that have been interviewed and questioned by the NBI and the police.
Hi, Sir. Nella Lesmoras of PTV4. Sir, nabanggit niyo po kasi na this case is almost over. Yung mastermind po kaya dito sa krimen, kailan natin na mapapangalanan?
Ano yan eh, the NBI will file a case. NBI, PNP together, they will work together to file a case before the fiscal. And let them be the ones to close the theory. Kasi it's not my job to do that. My job is only to guide the investigation, to make sure that the system works, and to make sure that there are no doubts as to how things were done. as to the investigation. We're trying to make everything as transparent as possible. I think that's one reason why Dr. Fortune agreed to do this examination, because we are not allowing anything to come into the way of finding the truth. Kailangan malaman natin yung buong katotohanan.
And sir, with the second autopsy result, ano po yung gagawin natin pakipag-ugnayan at paghigpit pa sa Bureau of Corrections?
Yes, I will also supply a copy of this autopsy report directly to the acting Bucor director, so that he can take note of this methamphetamine in the system. And I will also supply him with all the affidavits that we have garnered, so he will have an idea of how things are being run, or how things happen inside the NBP compound. Because we have to learn our lesson from this episode. This is not, it's not very easy to accept that things can go wrong that way. But yun po yun, we call a spade a spade.
Sir, good morning po. Chrissy Di Matulak po from CNN Philippines. Sir, na-mention po kanina na cause of death is asphyxiation, pero in the original report of NBI, sinabi po na natural death. So, can we safely say po, or can we say na nagkaroon na ng foul play?
Informed na kasi, ang pagkakaiba lang kasi, the second autopsy report, informed na po ang doctor of the possibility of foul play. During the first autopsy, wala pa yung dying declaration. During the first autopsy, wala pa yung ibang factors na pumapasok. So it is already an informed examination that brings to light so many things. Pero lang po yun eh, it just came later, and that some information was not yet available at that time. So you're not talking about inconsistency, you're talking about developments that happened after. Hindi po inconsistency.
Sir, mas kumulo ba, or did this make the investigation clearer kasi medyo hindi nagtatagumanga yung mga autopsy results?
Again.
Sir, can we safely say na...
Can you take off your mask so I can read your lips also when you speak?
Yes, sir. Sir, can we say po na posible bang mas kumulo yung investigation, or did this re-autopsy make the investigation clearer?
I think it made everything clearer. It gives you a better picture of what transpires inside. The finding of methamphetamine, I think, is very significant. That was not there in the picture before, because you draw a picture of what's happening inside that makes you go to your several conclusions. Wala akong nakikita inconsistency. I think that these are developments that happened after, when the information was processed after. And this is the information that you do not keep from any doctor. Hindi mo itatago sa kanila yan, tapos you tell them to go blind. You inform them of what you know. That's the first basic rule, so that they're guided when they're doing the examination. Ang problema kasi dyan, the first time that it was examined, wala pa yung dying declaration. It was not there. The dying declaration came in Thursday already after the autopsy of the NBI was conducted. Maraming factor na hindi po alam ng NBI yung kinonduct nila yung autopsy. But and this time, because of the experience of Dr. Fortune, I think it's more extensive. And maybe she has more ways of arriving at conclusions when she examines them. She will not be the chairman of the Department of Pathology of the University of the Philippines if she did not know enough of her craft. I think it's very significant. The level of expertise.
Sir, last question na po for me. Sir, you mentioned nga yung presence ng methamphetamine. Sir, will we be launching a separate investigation sa kung ano yung nangyayari sa NBP? Kasi, you mentioned.
Yes, sabi ko nga, I will furnish a copy to the acting Bucor director. So he will be guided by what we find inside. Pati yung mga affidavits na nakuha na namin, bibigyan namin ng kopya si acting Bucor director para makita kung anong direksyon dapat gawin sa pagpapatakbo ng National Bilibid Prisons.
Hi, sir. Good morning. Ma'am Gonzalez from JB po. Sir, Dr. Fortun mentioned earlier na there was an additional information of how he died. Pwede po ba natin sabihin kung sino po yung nagbigay ng information na yun? Was it the PDL? Was it an official?
PDL.
A PDL po?
Yes.
Sir,
And this is a sworn statement. We're not talking about kwento. We're talking about a sworn statement.
Sir, now that we've kind of established that there was foul play dahil nga po yung plastic bag, ganyan, sir, can we say na ito ay parang paraan para patahimikin si Jun Villamor with regards to the Percy Lapid case? I know that there are two separate
Yes.
cases.
Yes. Kaya nga, we're talking about 2 deaths already. We're not just talking about Percy Lapid. But it will bolster the whole theory. They're all tied together. Magkakasama po lahat yan, mga facts na yan.
Sir, last na lang po. Sir, merong binanggit po yung Mabasa family that they have been receiving death threats as well. Meron na po ba silang hiniling sa inyo ng karagdagang...
I spoke to Roy Mabasa this morning and he's in contact with witness protection. And we're providing security for Roy and the Mabasa family.
Sir, last na lang po kahapon. Sir, nagre-request po sila na ipatrace yung mga tawag at yung mga text sa Mabasa family.
Yes. And sa Mabasa family, I have to get their numbers. And I will have the NBI do that. We have the expertise to trace all of this information.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, last lang, dahil po tapos na yung second autopsy, ipapauwi po ba yung katawan ni Jun Villamor sa kanyang pamilya? May isasama ba yung kanyang mga kapatid? Saan na po yung kanyang katawan bali ngayon?
We will first arrange a viewing for one of the relatives before we bring home the body to Leyte. I've spoken to them lengthily about this. May isang witness lang na ayoko talagang pauwiin pa kasi kailangan siya ma-secure. And we will give the proper burial to Jun Villamor and we will assist them, the whole family, in this matter. Kasama po yan sa trabaho natin to make sure that things are done properly.
Secretary si Johnson po from ABS. Sir, clarin ko lang para magtugma yung figures po natin. Yung binigay po ninyo na 7 taong in custody, sila po ba yung 5 nasa NBI?
Iba pa yun.
Iba pa.
Iba pa to.
So ilan po lahat?
Isang development. So magiging 11 na sila.
Pwede po ba?
Magiging 12 na sila sa NBI after we get, hindi pa natin dinadala sa NBI yung pito. They're almost there.
They're in Bilibid pa.
Basta they're almost in NBI.
At for the record lang sir, yung mastermind, may idea na po tayo without naming names.
I will let the NBI stitch together. It's not anymore my call. I am not the primary investigator. I just made the investigation possible to be conducted by both the NBI and the PNP together.
Thank you.
May comment, may question.
Oh. Okay, okay na tayo.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Fortun is something.
Just one thing. This is but one death in custody. We do not have a system of death investigation. All inmates dying in custody, institutionalized, it should be investigated. We really could have lost this one if we did not do some semblance of an investigation. Look at what findings we've got. It's not just a matter of how the individual was killed. Please take note, it's also a health issue that there is methamphetamine in jail. That was so shocking for me. And the other is that there is a parasitic infection. You know, these people die of communicable diseases as well. So wouldn't you want to check the jails? We don't want our inmates to be dying, right? They're supposed to be under state custody. Yes, wards of the state, they should not be dying and they should not be killed, of course, like this. That's all. Thank you.
Maybe one thing I can tell you also, before we end this, the flow of information has been very, very fast towards the Department of Justice. And we are finding out more than we bargained for. We are processing a lot of information right now. What we're releasing is actually just about the case of the late Percy Lapid, which opened up everything. And of course, the case of Jun Villamor, who died. If we look at the account that was given us 20 to 21 minutes after he sent his dying declaration to his sister. Yun po yung nakakagulat dito. 20 to 21 minutes. Parang ganun lang. It's all it took for him to die. So, we will stand by our findings because I think we have done this, we've done a very thorough job. But we're not stopping here. Meron pa kaming kailangan kausapin. Yung 7, basta meron na tayong kailangan kausapin pa para kompleto po yung alam natin sa nangyari po sa bagay na to. And hopefully we learn our lessons as a country about with what happened to Percy Lapid and what happened to Jun Villamor. Thank you.
No, patay. Oh, ambush. Ambush. Ambush, ambush. Thank you. Okay.